Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. This is our first ever Leadership Matters webinar that we are presenting as part of the GLS 363 program. I hope that you can all hear me fine, just maybe some technicalities before we start. My name is Lida van Staden. I am the MD of Gravation I Know. And you can see our video that I have with me here, one of our GLS 363 success partners today. JD, welcome. And I look forward to our discussion this afternoon. We offer these free webinars every second Thursday of each month as part of our GLS 363 program. It is completely free and you don't have to pay for that or be part of the program to join in. So please feel free to invite anyone to our future events. We have some very exciting topics coming up, and we will definitely share our program for the rest of the year with you as well. We invite our success partners, who are all qualified coaches, to share some insights with us on each of the topics that we've chosen for this year. Those of you that don't know, but GLS 363 is a collaboration between Gravation I Know and the Global Leadership Network. It's a digital e-learning leadership development program that allows you to create personalized development journey that align to your biggest development needs. And you will then be supported by one of our success partners to help you to reflect and apply and improve what you have learned in your work environment. There's some exciting talks from the Global Leadership Summit over the last 10 years that link up to those topics that you select to focus on. And if you want to know more, please go and register on the GLS 363 website and be part of our community. We will send you the link as well after this webinar. So thank you for joining. So JD, let's jump in there. JD is going to talk to us about purpose that transcends uncertainty, which is a very topical subject to talk about. So I'm really excited. It's one of my favorite topics. And we're just going to do it in an interview format. So I've prepared a few questions. And then afterwards, if you have any questions, please feel free. We're going to allow some time for questions and answers afterwards. You will see that at the bottom of your webinar, there is a question and answers button. So you can see so long if you can find it, and you are welcome to paste your questions in there. And after some of the prepared questions, we will switch over to those questions that you have, and we can get JD to answer. We will finish at the dot at 1 minute to 2. Because we have some load shedding issues starting at 2. But we will finish at 2 o'clock. So yeah, thank you for joining. JD, let's start. You know, the word purpose is something that's thrown around a lot these days. And a lot of people talk about purpose. Hasn't it just become sort of a cliche? You know, isn't it just the new thing?
Lida, thank you so much for having me this afternoon, and good afternoon to everybody that's tuned in. Yes, wow, what can I say? Purpose is, I think, definitely become quite a bit of a cliche. Every second book you might find it. There are hundreds of videos out there. But usually under each cliche, you would still find there's a misunderstood truth that's hidden in there. And I think one of the big confusing things is everybody believes they need to find purpose in their specific job, what they do. For example, what should I do with my life? How should I work? But purpose is just so much more than that. It's an overarching term that has an impact on just about everything that you do, all the different roles that you have in society, whether that is at home or at work, in the community, wherever it might be. So yes, it's been thrown around and misunderstood, but definitely I think there's still great value in it. If you think about every movie that you go to, the actual question that a person actually is asking in almost every movie is, who am I? Why am I here? Yeah. So it'll always be relevant. I think it's in our DNA. It's the way we've been created and coded.
Absolutely. And I think, as a Christian, I believe that we have been created for a purpose, and that we are here for a very specific reason. But is there only like one purpose that we have as a human being, or as a leader, or is there multiple purposes that we can have?
Yeah, it's a yes and no answer, I think. Yes, I think you have a singular purpose, but no, I don't think it's expressed in one singular way. So if you, and I believe we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and you must help me if I'm wrong with your analogy. But if you think about a cheese grater or any other tool in the kitchen, it has a specific function. And if you look at that function, it's got holes, you can't put flowers in it, for example, I believe is what you said. In the same way, if you start looking at who you are, you've got certain characteristics, a personality, an upbringing that shaped you in a certain way. You, however, I do believe, have a choice. We've been created with choice. Well, how will I apply this thing? Will I only grate potatoes? Will I only grate cheese?
Yes.
Will I only be used in the kitchen? Can I be used outside? But yeah, you probably won't be able to mow the lawn with a cheese grater.
Exactly.
That might be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. And, I think, so you said that, your talk is called Purpose That Transcends Uncertainty. I like that. What do you mean with transcending uncertainty?
Yeah, wow. If you just take the coronavirus at the moment, as an example, out of nowhere, this massively threatening and maybe overhyped a phenomenon has hit the world, and it's part of what is also called a VUCA world that we live in, a VUCA. So it's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And what that means is that out of nowhere in our world today, things can hit us, can rattle us, can unsettle our internal certainty that we have of, I am okay, I have enough money, I have a job. Those things aren't that certain anymore. They change quite quickly. Previous generations got a job and they held on for the golden watch, and then they got the golden watch and they retired, and then they went fishing, and maybe 2 years later they were dead because they were bored. Nowadays things have changed. The menu is so much broader in terms of what's available for us to do. So we have to choose. And in order to do that, you have to understand who am I and how am I moving forward. So if you have a certain kind of purpose, an internal certainty. So in the world of entrepreneurship, where I work quite frequently, we talk about an internal locus of control.
Yes.
So if you are anchored in a world that is safe and healthy, and a virus hits, then what happens if your anchoring, it was external to yourself? But if you have an internal certainty, right? So if you're a Christian, then you create it. You understand that you can connect with your Creator to a higher state of being, something much greater than yourself. And from that perspective, understand, well, I'm here for a reason, and I'm going to stick to that. And I'm going to stick to that certainty that I was put here for a reason, and follow that thinking consecutively. Once the uncertainty starts, the external certainty, you have an anchor position internally that you can go back to and re-experience that sense of certainty and calmness.
Absolutely. I attended a workshop called Thrive that also spoke to this whole VUCA idea, because I don't think that we completely grasped it yet, and they said that it's almost like, in the past, if I ask you to put up some music, I sent you to my CD collection, and there's 10 CDs, and it's easy to make a selection, out of that 10 CDs, because that's the only choice that you have. But now it's like I'm sending you into a room full of CDs, and we get stuck in that uncertainty of making a choice. And we just like overwhelmed with all these choices around us. And if we start to look at our environment, and trying to find that certainty there, it's difficult, and I think that's why people struggle. So I like what you're saying, that we need to anchor it in ourselves, and it's our purpose, and it's internal. It's not something that you find in the external world out there. And So if you, you know, how do you go about creating the sense of certainty? You know, how do you actually find it? You know, what is the process that you go? You know, if I'm in a place where I'm really uncertain right now, you know, how do I find it?
So it's an individual process. I mean, there's some steps that everybody can take, but there's no recipe that is absolutely true for every person. And I mean, that's why we do what we do with the GLS 363 is to say that come and talk to us so that we can sit and map out something that works best for you. But it is a consistent experience and reflection that you have to go through. And you have to go and look at the tools that are out there, as well as the experiences, and get people around you that talk the same language. You have to do that. So if you take personality tests, you have the Strengths Finder and the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs. Those will definitely help you in terms of actually understanding your makeup. Just don't get stuck in those things. Don't label yourself too much. If you look at books, there are plenty of books around. There are webinars that you can join in and do this. And then reflection. Are you tracking how you're thinking, what you're experiencing? I always say it's a little bit like connect the dots. You can have purpose worksheet that helps you understand whether you're a person that likes to focus more on individuals, or you're a person that likes to build systems. So there's a number of tools that you can actually access, and I'm sure once again if they interact more with us, we will make much more of these things available. But the one thing that I've seen that every person that has a clear sense of purpose is if you're hungry enough, you'll find it.
If you make an effort, you will. You know, I think I like to think of this as that we all have this puzzle. And but the cover is gone, so we don't know what this picture looked like, but we have all the pieces and we need to start building those pieces. We need to fit it in, you know, we need to see if the piece fit, you know, and the more effort you make, and as you start building this puzzle, you know, you start seeing a picture emerging. But it's effort, you know, it takes a journey. But a lot of people just carry this bag full of puzzle pieces with them, but they have no idea. So we need to start building it, and to build it means that you are putting effort into it. You know, you're really trying to uncover that. It's not something that you just like wake up one day and you know what it is. You know, it doesn't work like that. It's also, I find that a lot of people say, you know, someone told me that one day I will be this. You know, yeah, you know, it's not that simple, you know. It's something that you still need to. It is a journey, and yes, we need to go through that journey. So
you make me think of there's a quote from a film. It says, "Knowing the path is different to walking the path."
Yes.
So even sometimes people, and I've met them, that they do have a strong sense of purpose early on in life, but it's an idea, and then not until you actually walk it and go test those ideas and look for greater answers. Connect to your creator that has given you this purpose, and in that relationship and in the walk, it becomes a reality. It changes, and truly come to understand what it actually means. I think it was Frodo Baggins from Lord of the Rings that said, okay, it's an awfully big adventure to, you know, go out your door every day and go out into the world. And I think that's part of it. It's an adventure to discover your purpose.
Yeah, yeah. And let's make it exciting, you know. So I think once we start to understand our purpose, you know, and you know, I can say I've been on this journey. I think we go through stages in our life where, you know, we sort of just like go through the run of the mill, you know, just do life, you know, day to day, and then we come to a place where we confront it with, you know, what is the bigger purpose of this? You know, why am I really here? And then you start uncovering this, you know, and as we uncover this and we figure out and say, yo, I'm a problem solver, you know, I'm a big picture thinker, you know, my purpose must be something in this place, you know, how do we take that understanding back to the job that I do day to day and where I am at? Yeah.
It's having a nice purpose, and I think it actually links in very well to this knowing the path and walking the path that I just spoke about, because it's nice to have this big idea, But then to say, okay, and then what do I do today to express this purpose, the sense of I'm here to help people, I'm here to build systems, create wealth, whatever the purpose that an individual person might actually have. And once again, it's a bit subjective. It depends on who you are. Maybe you're a mom at home, and you like to bring harmony and beauty in the home. That's not your only thing. What if you're also a manager? And in your role as manager and leader in an organization, you do the same thing, but you just don't realize it. I've spoken to somebody actually that went through a very tough transition. It was a mom at home, kind of similar in this situation, and she had to then get out again after, unfortunately, a bad divorce. And she had to get out in the real world. And we had to sit down, and what we realized was is this power to create harmony, and wasn't just at home. When people then worked in the organization that she led, she could create harmony through systems and the experience that people had, and that elevated them in terms of their role as effectiveness. If you're an entrepreneur, it becomes, I think, much easier and more difficult all at the same time, because now you're sitting out and you're the boss, and you can set the standard, you can set the culture, you can set the strategy. So you start with a purpose, then you go into the strategy, you build the systems, and then you unleash people, the EQ side of it within these systems. What does that mean? It means first you must understand if your singular purpose is one to elevate society through, creating a new medical device. You believe creating new medical standards globally. That might be a purpose. So how do you do that? How do you bring that into the company? And it's first of all aligning your systems and strategy systems and then people to this, and building the values in this. Understand your own values and in some way help shape that in the company as well. And then the systems need to speak that. If you believe fairness is a value, well, then will you be having systems that's constantly checking on people, that favor one employee above another, that creates a competitive environment instead of a collaborative environment? And in that way, you have to think, so this is who I am. This is where Jim Collins speaks about going from a time teller, somebody that's usually very good at execution. And usually leaders are. They get the job done. That is definitely part of leadership. There's a results-oriented, and I don't want to knock that. But if it comes from almost that the results is the only thing, and you forget who you are, you forget your being and your purpose, then maybe 2, 5, 10 years down the line, it's going to be an empty thing. You're going to stop and you're going to think, what have I created? I created a prison for everybody instead of creating freedom. So stepping away, putting the ego in its place, which I think is a conversation maybe for another time, but putting that in place and creating systems, because ultimately leaders create leaders. So if you do it with a purpose, first of all, a larger, bigger purpose in terms of I'm here to create leaders, and within an organization that elevates humanity through medical equipment, then you start building in to elevate the people. Because if you take care of the people inside the company, they will take care of the people outside of the company in that sense. So those are, I think, 2 examples. But once again, you're going to have to get to a coach and work it out. It's a journey.
And I think, it's not like you have arrived when you found your purpose. It is a continuous journey, because it's like always checking, is this what I'm doing in line with my purpose? Am I still in check? Have I maybe discovered another piece that I'm not aware of? I like this idea of a cheese grater. I spoke to you about that as well, to say, if you are a cheese grater, are you only using that one side that's grating the cheese? What is this other side for that's like full of little knobs? You can't grate cheese there, but we just know, I don't ever use that part of my cheese grater, but maybe there's a part of you that you're not using, and you think you've discovered your purpose, but maybe there's a whole other part, and that's also coming, so I think it's a continuous journey of always finding out more of, where you can be of value.
I absolutely agree with you. I've had a pretty good, I think, intuitive understanding of what my purpose was at a young age. It actually caused a lot of problems for me because nothing felt like it fit my circumstances. So I pushed really hard to understand, well, where do I fit in? How is my purpose best expressed? Because I had this burning desire to understand where I fit into this world with this understanding of leadership and people development, etc. And that led that sometimes I was impatient and And I unfortunately, caused a bit of trouble in some workplaces. I started things that failed. That wasn't the right time to do that. But you know what? I'm so happy I went through all of that.
Yeah.
Because that helped me to understand. And that made me humble as well. And it built in patience, which is a very big thing. I think we still have to. I'm still learning. I think we all still have to.
Honestly, actually I had a talk the other day with a bunch of students in Stellenbosch about purpose, and I just think that if you're standing there in the beginning of your career, sometimes you think that you're going to uncover your purpose, step one, and then step two, you're going to just follow the straight path, to ultimate achievement of this purpose. And there's never a straight path, It's always like you almost need to fail sometimes to also uncover a part of what you need to do.
Yes, nobody likes to hear that, right? So I think it's an old saying. It says, "Pain is a great teacher, but few wants to be the student." and there's just the obstacle is the way. So you have to go into that. You have to lean into it. If the obstacle comes, it means here's an opportunity to learn more about yourself, to learn more and to uncover who you are and shape that and strengthen that. That's all it means. I think in the West, specifically in Western cultures, we look at problems to solve and remove so that we can get onto this journey that you mentioned earlier.
Yes, exactly.
This upward trajectory that we all so passionately want. But I think it was Anton Rupert that said, no, they should appoint recent graduates to the heads of all their companies. Because they are indestructible and infallible. And that we all start there. We have to start there. And I think it's the best. When I sit down, especially with young people, I say, I don't try and stop them. Because when we are young, the risk is low. So make the mistakes young, rather than, because if you, later on in life, it's much more difficult.
Much more difficult.
You have to find, you're going to become quite crafty.
The price is a lot more as well.
Yes.
You pay a much higher price later on if you want to go in, do something completely different,
Yes.
So try it all out while you're young. I absolutely agree. And I think I like this, we see this as a road where we need to get the problem out of the way, as if there is this highway. There isn't. This is a road full of these obstacles. But how great it is to always just overcome the next one and the next one. So it's not ever going to not be any obstacles in front of you,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you should involve a coach to help you on this journey.
Yes.
And we also, when we put GLS 363 together, we also said that people can't journey alone. Leaders can't journey alone. We need to give them someone that's a success partner to them. But how do you see the role that coaches play in this?
So I've got a little secret. And the secret is that back in the day, I didn't like feedback or coaching at all.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I thought, teachers leave me alone. I can do this. Just give me the book and I'll keep running and I'll be fine. And then that stopped working. And I was put into situations where years ago when I started my coach training, that it was quite simple, that I couldn't be a coach if I wasn't coached myself. And that process of feedback, I was on a long list and I was told, don't do this, don't do that, you ask this too much, etc. Facilitation as well. People that do the scoring. We said 35 times in the last 10 minutes, those kinds of things that we don't want to be. But that process of feedback and awareness fast-tracked my growth tremendously. And now I welcome it. It might still not be the most comfortable thing. But so I, as a coach, like to be coached. I like to get the feedback. I don't just ask anybody. This is very important.
Yeah.
I only welcome people into that space of my life that has potentially relevant experience, that know how to work with themselves, that will do it with a high level of emotional intelligence. And that is what I recommend to look for in a coach when you go and work, because the coach, excuse me, the coach elevates your potential. Look at the top, especially the individual performers in sports globally. They all still have a coach. If you go and look at the golfers and the tennis players, for example, even though they are world class, they're at the top of their game, they're world champions, they still have a coach. Why? There's always room to improve. There's always somebody to help you interpret these challenges that we spoke about earlier as opportunities to grow. And maybe take some time out, reflect, and come back stronger. And a coach will help you see that, because we all, we get stuck in our ways.
Absolutely.
And that's what a coach should do. But be careful, get the right person, and really, I think somebody that has, similar, not exactly the same life experiences, but similar life experiences. So that when the questions that they ask, when I ask them, it's relevant, it's informed, it has context.
And I think also, try out a few and see what works for you. Don't be scared to go through a process like, this CD, which one, it's overwhelming. There's so many. I mean, the coaching space out there is scary, life coach, business coach, mentor, what do I select? Where do I start? And maybe just choose one, try out one, see, what aspect is missing, try out another one. I think it's important that you just start playing in that space and start exploring in that space. And with GLS 363, I think our success partner that we bring onto that program is really just such a small part of just trying to get you to experience the value of having someone to reflect with, and that's really what we're trying to achieve there.
And that's a practice we built into the GLS 363 is that there is a bit of testing and trying and talking and figuring out who's going to work best. I do that in my other practice as well. I tell somebody, you have an hour of my time for free up front. Let's see if this can work. Am I the best person for you? Because it's not always certain that I am. I have a certain skill set and abilities and experience, and I'm going to be able to help certain people better than others. And so any coach that's really good will be really willing to first have at least some form of discussion. And nowadays we have the internet, so you can have a quick Skype conversation, for example, and that's great. So that might already be a little bit of an indicator if the person doesn't want to give up any time at all up front for free. Maybe that might not be the best person to go with, unless they have come with awesome references and they and you know who they are from another place.
Yeah. Our last question, I see that we do have some questions and answers, so I'm going to ask one last question. If any of you have some questions that you also want to ask JD, now is the time to pop them in that question and answer section for us. We still have a nice long time to discuss your questions, so please pop them in there. JD, one last question from me, but I'm sure I'm going to be able to come up with more if we don't have any in that question and answer box, because I'm really enjoying this discussion. But do you have any people that may be going through a place in their life right now where they're really struggling with finding their purpose and trying to uncover what it is that they are here for? Is there any advice that you can give them? And we've spoken a lot, but maybe just summarize for me, what do you think is the next step? What should I do?
I think the first is to recognize you're not alone. We go through many life transitions. And in each one of those, we are potentially confronted with, okay, so this is not working. Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing here? And that's great. If you have those questions, it means you're alive. It means you're questioning and you're thinking about what can work best. So step number one, just recognize it's okay to feel uncertain. It's at times of our lives. It's potentially an indication that you're going to go through maybe a bit of a valley experience. And in that valley experience will come greater renewed strength as you exit on the other side. So the kind of awareness of that. The second thing is to definitely try and find a coach somewhere that can help interpret this. But to a certain degree, I think we've forgotten how to be real friends. Maybe a glass of wine and a bit of a nice meal could maybe solve many of these things. Somebody that could really ask questions. So what do you think you can do? How can this move forward?
And also an accountability partner, maybe just someone that holds you accountable to do certain things, and I think, because a lot of time people also say, well, to have a coach and all these things, it costs a lot of money. But I think it's also something, if you, or even at your work or a friend, talk to someone and say, I need to check in with you on these things, or what do you think of, you know, what do you think are my strengths and do I need to focus on? You know, those type of conversations really also excel you. I think sometimes we just don't have those conversations, you know.
Yes.
And yeah, I think it's something that it is, we need to realize that it's a continuous journey. For me, that's really one of the most important things around purpose. It's not something that you just discover.
Absolutely, and we spoke about this earlier, and you've got to have patience. And a lot of times in today's day, like, so you must have a purpose. You must have a purpose, and it almost becomes a bit of an anxious process. I must know it now, and I must operate in this purpose, and I must be, you know, great and fantastic and overcome absolutely anything. And slow down. You don't really have to. You might already actually know what your purpose is intuitively and already be doing it without you even knowing it. And it's this sense of instant gratification, I guess, the culture that we're living in at the moment, and the VUCA environment out there is not making it easy as well. So everything out there is essentially, you know, heightening our sense of fight or flight, you know, the lizard brain that kicks in. And there's three main things that rattle us, usually that get us from a calm inner state of being to one where we are more anxious and stressed, but the cortisol levels go up. The first is the external environment. This is the VUCA world. This is the job that goes wrong. It's the babies that cry, the boss that shouts at you, the market that's cheering, things outside of your control, essentially. The second is time. If we are stuck in the past, in terms of things that happened, and we reinterpret current events in the same way, we're going to act the same way. If we fear that those things will happen again in the future, we tend to not take action. So time. Not time as in I don't have enough time, but time as in I'm stuck in the past, I'm afraid of the future. So it's environment, and then time. And obviously those two also have a relationship with one another, because the environment can, something happens to you, can actually get stuck. And if you go through this enough, your body, that's the third one, so body, your cells actually get programmed. And we actually, 95% of what we do is pre-programmed thinking. We just run, we just have our little scripts, our belief systems, etc. So this process of where you are confronted in a situation means things aren't happening as they used to happen. It's a great opportunity. I believe it's the Chinese that says, don't waste a crisis, don't waste a crisis. It's too good an opportunity. The crisis is an opportunity to reflect and think.
Absolutely. I think it's, for me, always, you know, when your comfort zone is a little bit rattled, I think that's the best opportunity to grow, you know. So, you know, it's always exciting, you know, because there will just come something better out of that. So you need to make use of that opportunity.
And you need those friends that are not going to get all crazy and excited along you, but they're going to calmly think through this and say, so what do you have to do? What is your next season? And it's not that easy to find these people all the times, because yes, that would definitely, it's going to cost you a meal and a bottle of wine to have, you know, this discussion with a friend instead of, I don't know how much of a, you know, the chosen coaching solution. But that's, I say that as well. Get a good friend, preferably. If not, get a coach. Either one of the two.
No, absolutely. Let's see what the questions is that we have. Kelly asked, you mentioned that reflection is part of finding your purpose. Can you please recommend a practical way of reflecting on one's day and how to record that information?
Yes. So I'll start with the last part of the question in terms of recording information. Wow, absolutely any way you want to. There's a big thing, you must journal. You must journal. You know, I find people, some don't like a pen and paper. Can you record yourself? I actually do use recordings to help me understand and reflect on things. If I capture a moment, then I record and I played it back to myself, which is kind of, might be funny for some people, might be very useful for others. So that's whatever way is best for you. Try things out. Please don't go buy fancy equipment. Your phones, obviously, and laptops have all the recording equipment you could possibly need. But so, yeah, the reflection, a practical way of reflecting. So the tool is one way that can help you do that practically, but you need to take time. Yeah. And this is a difficult thing.
I think the one thing, and that's something from our consulting environment that, you know, also I think you need to create a rhythm for yourself to say every Sunday afternoon, you know, I'm going to ask myself, what have excited me this week? What frustrated me this week? You know, create a rhythm so that you almost like get to that. Because if we don't make time for it, you know, and if we don't have the rhythm, you know, 2 weeks, a month pass because there's always a crisis, you know, and you don't really stick to that self-reflecting rhythm. That's the one thing, and you need to like have those questions, you know, what could I have done better this week? What have I done really well? You know, just some of those hooks that you like reflect on. And the other thing that really helped me a lot was to start like building the puzzle. I have one big piece of paper where I write down my strengths from Strength Finder. You know, some of the stuff that I, you know, just Myers-Briggs, you know, personality test that I did. What did they say? What is the key things that stand out for me there? You know, if I articulate my purpose in a certain way, you know, write that there, you know, start building this. I almost call it like a board full of words. But some people are more visual, so they might want to build up a picture and little pictures, you know, but it's really inspiring to have something that sort of summarizes what you're all about on one piece of paper. But don't, like, it's not a once-off thing, you know. I write, and it's not pretty mine either, you know, I'm not going to show it to you. But it's there, you know, and it's something that for me, like, just summarized together, that also helped me in that reflection to say anything that I've experienced this week, is it on this board, you know, am I busy with these type of things, you know, am I busy with other stuff, you know, and really get that. So Kelly, I hope that answers your question. Otherwise you can write us another one. I'm going to move over to Stefan. Stefan's asking, is there any tips of how to transition from knowing your purpose to executing your purpose when life is currently so busy that it feels that there's no time to execute your purpose?
Yeah, well, we always come back to time. Time is a constraint, but I don't believe it has to be. So I've had this challenge many times. It feels like my purpose is something over here, but I'm busy with this every day. I want to challenge that ever so slightly and to say, go and look at your whole repertoire of gifts and abilities that you've received. And then ask yourself, in line with this purpose, is there something that you're doing on a daily basis that you can start testing, but can you do it a bit different? You can bring in a new technique. Potentially you're a manager and you've been managing in a certain way, but it doesn't reflect your purpose. Can you think about how to potentially manage your team differently, bring in a different tool or technique, give more freedom? If maybe you're somebody that's really about freedom, is there a way to bring it in your current practices? You can start testing and maybe just getting that little bit of an opening to start to see how it can potentially be applied. It's not easy. I think there's a faith element to this as well. Once again, if you're hungry enough, it'll happen. I found that in my life, but then you've got to be open for the adventure and the mistakes as well. That's the wilder part.
And stepping out of your comfort zone, you know?
Absolutely.
But I think there's something else there as well. I think people struggle to know what we mean by purpose, you know, because there's so many terminology out there in the world. You know, there's things like a vision, and there's things like vocation, and there's things like something say that there's a calling. You know, there's so many of these words out there. And I think purpose is just something that's bigger than just a job. You know, if I say my purpose is to be a teacher at the school, or my purpose is to be, you know, in politics or whatever, you know, you know, hopefully not. But if that's my purpose, you know, that purpose is not a job. Purpose is not a specific. And I think in my speech with the students the other day, you know, I say to them, there's 3 questions that you need to answer. The one question is, why am I here? Okay. The other question is, why am I here? And that's where purpose come in. Purpose come in, why am I here? And then, why am I here? That situational section is to say, well, how do I apply this purpose, this bigger idea of me and how, my personality and my gifts and what I'm supposed to do to this current situation of why am I here in this place? And I think that it helps you to segment almost those answers, because sometimes we just want to answer the entire question with one sentence. Why am I here? And it's difficult, it's because there's so many different aspects to it.
There's the paradigm part of it, your worldview, meaning of life, whatever you want to call that, if I hear you correctly. Then you start going down just in terms of your individual, your subjective purpose. And once again, I agree with you. Purpose it's not a job, one role that you're aiming to complete in life. It is an evolving process of understanding how you can add value in any situation that you find yourself. Absolutely. What's that golden thread? What's your voice, your fingerprint that you leave no matter where you go? It's a way of being rather than something you do.
Exactly.
But then to come to the last one where you say, why am I here? And that's in your role with the gift sets and right now. And how can you translate that into where you are right now and potentially start working on this so that, yes, I know you have gifts and you might be able to express it much higher, your purpose much higher in certain roles.
In different circumstances, but it doesn't mean that you can't express it in your current circumstances as well. And I think, so
absolutely.
Thanks for the question, Stefan.
Celo said, while you yourself will know your happy place, you may not be good at doing those things that make you happy. What's the role of people who you know well, showing you what you are naturally good at, and is that helpful in finding your purpose?
Well, showing you what you are naturally good at, helpful in your purpose.
So are we talking feedback here? I think is who know you well, and in a happy place. So it's using feedback, if I understand the correction, the question correctly, using the feedback from people that know you well. So that's I don't know if anybody, and maybe this is a little tip for today, the Johari window is a nice little tool for this, is to understand who you are. And they're from different perspectives, because sometimes there are certain things and certain way of being that that nobody else knows. But then also part of the Johari window is where somebody knows something about you that you're not even aware of yet. And the kind of feedback, that's what we were talking about earlier, can help you to understand exactly where you want to develop, what's next for you. And it's difficult sometimes, because I think people generally listen to ask a question. You don't listen with intent, you don't listen for. So if you can find somebody that is willing to give you feedback and that is good at what they are, and they want to spend time with you, I would say connect with a person like that as far as possible.
But I think sometimes, it is important to get other people's feedback. We sort of sometimes just go around doing things, but if I go and sit down with my team and I ask them, what is the things that stand out for you? If you have to describe me to someone, what will you say? And sometimes you almost uncover something about yourself that you're not even aware of. And that's what you're saying with that Johari window, is that feedback of others can absolutely give you a new revelation of what your purpose is, because sometimes I think we do act within our purpose without even knowing it, and sometimes not knowing your purpose doesn't mean that you are not in it. And that's sort of really weird to think about it that way, but sometimes you're going to discover your purpose and then discover that you've been actually being in that purpose all along, because you are true to yourself. And that's also something that's important. And I think also there's that Japanese, that circles that go into each other. I don't know if you've seen it, and we can maybe share that as well, that have purpose in the middle. And so what you are good at, what you're getting paid for, and what's the other one?
So it's what is it? Also the Jim Collins one, the Venn diagram, the circles.
Yes, that one, yeah.
So yeah, it's what drives your economic engine. You know,
Yes.
how can you get paid? What are you passionate about? And what
are you good at?
Yeah, and what can you be best for the world at?
Yes.
Change it into a serving model.
So I think the one thing that your question made me think of, tell us also, you know, how do you intertwine these circles? You know, because you're saying one thing, you may not be good at something that makes you happy. You need to find out what you're passionate about, but also, you know, what is it that you know, can do and have the skills to do? Because maybe you're really passionate about something, you don't have the skills. Skills is something that you can develop, you know, but finding what you're passionate about comes first, you know, and then say, okay, so what do I lack in order to really fulfill this and really bring these circles closer together?
Once again, the Western world, the Western concept, and our value is much more attached to what we can do, what you can produce, how fast you can work, and the car you drive. Into materialistic oriented society. And not only when I say materialistic in terms of how many things can I gather together before I die, but simply that the things that I see and the things that I do and produce carry much more weight than the things that I don't see.
Absolutely.
And your purpose is something that you don't see. But when you apply that purpose in an environment and help somebody, and you help build a house, for example, then you've created from your purpose. And that's actually a very spiritual thing if you think about it. You go from the completely unseen to the seen.
Yes.
And especially for entrepreneurs, the job is to create. They must go from the unseen to the seen.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. I think we have some more questions here. There's one from Erhaldo. I think you know him.
Yes. How's it, Erhaldo? Good to see you.
What tips can you give on how to assist your children in finding their purpose, and how can you support them in this discovery?
Can I get back to you in about 10 years from now?
I was just like, I'm going to sit back and hear this answer. I think it's so difficult.
Yes. So it is difficult, but I'm going to talk for myself.
Yes,
the way that I'm doing it at the moment, and the results that I've seen. Maybe I should start with the results that I see in my own son. My son is 11 years old, and he's on fire. He doesn't stand back for anybody. He has lots of self-confidence, and I think that's a lot of DNA in how he is. But I'd love to say that I play a little bit of a part in that, and I think dads play a big part in that. Moms create the safety in the environment, and dads help them jump out of it. And in that team, I think my wife and I, we're getting there. But with my son is unconditional expression of his abilities. When he does something that doesn't work, I refocus him. When he starts and measure externally with somebody else, I come back to saying, you know who you are. You are so-and-so. You are friendly. So I focus on characteristics.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to you as well, you know, when it comes to kids, we need to, number one, start with their identity.
That's
you know, who they are, because they need to be anchored in that identity. And that identity, again, is not formed by something outside of them, you know, and I think that's why it's so important for me to raise them as from a Christian point of view, and finding that identity in Christ, you know, and I think that's for me the start of that, is finding identity. And then secondly, values, you know, because that helps them drive decision making. So for me, that's the two things that I'm currently focused on, because, you know, they're still developing and their personalities, you know, also, I'm discovering it as I go, and believe me, if they are teenagers, you know, that change from day to day as well. You know, but just coming back to those anchor points, and, you know, also the values, because they need to know this is who I'm not, you know, I'm not honest, you know, I'm always honest, you know, or I care about people. That's my values. That's who we are,
yes.
You know, and just first of all, lay that foundation, yes. And then, you know, like uncovering from their specific giftings and where they can apply themselves, because that it starts to show itself, you know.
It does.
And it's amazing when you have more than one kid and you see it's like completely different, you know, and also completely different from how you see the world.
Yes.
So yeah, I think those things uncover themselves, but I think that's the two places where I start.
Yeah.
As a mom.
Absolutely. And it makes me think of freedom and boundaries. So the freedom to be who you are and express that and live that, but the values give you boundaries. you're a good person, it means you need to take care of yourself and other people in similar fashion. So the freedom and boundaries thing, because they might not understand the abstract idea of a purpose yet.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Jan-Derick. There's still 10 more minutes. If anyone have another question posted there, I can see Tselo. Thank you for interacting so nicely with us today. We really enjoy it. So you said that God used the weak and inadequate to do incredible things, David and Moses. As a Christian, what is the role of seeking God to understand our purpose, and what is your experience? I think, wow, what a question, thanks. I really believe that as a Christian, we need to realize that we are part of a bigger plan. It's actually not about us. God have a bigger plan, and we only play part in that plan. And it's also beyond our life. Our purpose is almost is eternal. So we just play one part in a bigger eternal story. And that's really where this becomes even more exciting. If you think about Joseph, he's my favorite example, because I think he got this dream when he was little. And God showed him a picture of how even his brothers and his father and everyone bow before him. And right after that, he got thrown into a pit. He spent some time in jail for 7 years. He get accused for for things that he didn't do. And, things didn't go well for him for a long time. But, that purpose of God making him second in command of Egypt wasn't actually about him becoming like someone important. It was part of a bigger story. And, I learn a lot of purpose by looking at these examples and these stories in the Bible as well, because those people, it doesn't always go according to plan. You don't just like walk in front of, and say, well, I'm here, I'm supposed to be the king, this is my purpose. It didn't go like that. But God was building character in him through all those challenges, in the same way that's happening in our lives every day, So, I think, thank you for asking that,
I think that example of Moses specifically is very interesting. So if you're going to have a look, so once he realized who he was, part of a cultural group, he then felt an urge to protect them, and he struck a man down. And then the desert and the wilderness, and a lot of the times, I think, and you're asking your experience. So my experience was pretty much the same. I stepped up and I tried to do wild things, and I got knocked down quite severely. And I've gone through some, extensive processes of reshaping and wilderness and pit experiences, whatever you want to call them. Because I believe the key principle here is that we need to learn, and I call this two-tree coaching. If you're back in Eden, you're going to try and do it on your own way, or you're going to recognize your purpose, and then you're going to come and you're going to wait under the tree of life until the good things come your way. And have the faith that that the God that gave this to you will make it come to pass. But if you decide to do it on your own, it's probably going to get the lesson again and again, to learn the lesson over and over until you get it. So big is the grace.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. It really deepened our discussion right there.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you. Is there anyone that have another question? Oh, here we go. Paul's throwing in a nice little one at us. Thanks for that. How do you deal with the evolution of your purpose, adapting to the different levels at which your purpose might need you to be, and the different purposes that you serve in the different areas of life?
I think it actually kind of comes in, dovetails nicely with the previous question. If you're a believer, there's a higher journey that you take in terms of this. There's a patience and a trust that you do. Even if you're a non-believer, I've encountered many people. It doesn't matter actually who you are, but it's an understanding of this due process and patience that you actually have to go through. And that really is looking for where you are right now. I love the saying that, grow where you planted. Start where you are, but don't stay there. So evolve from that. Right now where you are, interpret how you can actually use your purpose as far as possible. Test little things. I've always had multiple little things going. I had my main gig, and then I might be doing something over the weekends. I might be blogging a bit, experiencing my writing, etc. Until things started shaping in other directions. So testing.
I think also, so how do you deal with the evolution of that purpose? I think we need to realize that it is constantly evolving. It is constantly evolving, and we need to just constantly be seeking at living more according to what we have been created for. So if you feel uncomfortable or that you're not in the right place, ask questions, uncover. But sometimes we are in uncomfortable situations. Uncomfortable situations actually like springboard us to become like closer to our purpose. I think it's when you are comfortable that you need to be like really concerned.
Yes.
And yeah, that's really our answer. I hope that helps you, Paul. Thank you for asking that question. We have 5 more minutes. If you have any closing remarks, JD, and then Eskom is going to switch that webinar or this webinar off for us. So maybe if you just have some closing remarks.
I think the only thing that, the biggest principle that served me really well in finding purpose, going through the stage, is understanding my place is hunger. I never stopped having a hunger and a desire to know who I am and why am I here. And although that hunger sometimes led me into the wilderness, it's also led me out again. So whatever happens, don't give up, keep going. And each and every person listening to this definitely has a purpose. We might not all be a global leader of a corporate, but it doesn't matter where you are. You have a purpose that can be expressed across all the different roles that you play today.
Absolutely. So there you have it, people. Stay hungry. JD, thank you so much for joining us. Really, I really appreciate your inputs. Just a comment, thank you so much. Fantastic, learned a lot. God bless you both. Thanks, Julian, and thank you for really interacting with us as well. We really enjoyed this webinar, and please make sure to watch out on your emails. We have this on a monthly basis every second Thursday, so block it in your diary, and please join us again next month. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice afternoon.